Okay, baby. I think it's time for me to go. See you next week if the weather is good. I love you, I said. The day was truly beautiful. 24 degrees, sunny, light southern breeze. I packed everything from our little picnic into a basket and put it in the trunk of my car along with the lawn chair. I felt peaceful, serene, and yes, a little sad. This is how a visit to Kat always affected me. I've been in love with her since we were 12 years old, and I'll probably love her until the day I die. When I first saw Kat, my then best friend, Robert the Bruce, and I were playing catch in my front yard. She and her family were moving into a house next door that was for sale. It was the middle of summer before second grade. I was 7 years old. Robert and I happened to glance at a mover and family who were visiting the house that had previously belonged to the Miller family when I noticed her. She was thin, with long blonde braids and lots of freckles. Only later did I find out that she also had azure eyes. We watched her from the side and tossed the ball back and forth for a while until the girl came up to her father and spoke to him, pointing at Robert and me. I saw her father nod his head, then she ran into her house, reappearing a few seconds later with her own baseball glove and heading towards us. "Can I play too?" she asked, her smile revealing a row of jagged teeth. She introduced herself as Catherine McVeigh, Katie to her friends, and Kat to her boyfriends. I saw Robert wrinkle his nose, but I must admit, I was fascinated. I opposed Robert's decision, and the three of us began to play ball. She knew how to hold a glove, and, just as important, she didn't throw like a girl. As far as I could tell, she was accepted, expanding our little group of friends to 4, the other being Jimmy Arthur. Although there were more than enough girls in our area for her to play with, Kat spent most of her time with boys. She played baseball, kickball, war, and frisbee with us. I didn't see her spending much time with the girls, especially when they were playing with dolls or dressing up. Little by little, Kat overtook Robert as my best friend. If I could only invite one friend to go somewhere with his family, I chose Kat. If I could stay the night with one friend, I chose Kat. Kat's family was Catholic, but that didn't matter, until she was confirmed when she was 12. Confirmation is a very important event for devout Catholics, and there is usually a big party afterwards. Like most of the girls being confirmed that day, Kat wore a white dress and white tights. Very unusually for her, her hair was down. 2 weeks before, she had the braces taken off her teeth and she had some makeup done. I'm confused. I looked at Kat as if I had never seen her before. She was beautiful. My life will never be the same again. "What are you staring at, Julian?" "Shut your mouth, otherwise a fly will fly in," she said, seeing me staring at her. "Don't you dare say anything about this dress, otherwise I'll beat you so hard that you won't see anything for a week." I remember that throughout the party, I could neither breathe nor think. All of us children were asked to behave, but that evening I could not have behaved badly if my life depended on it. I was a vegetable. My heart was pounding. I'm sweating. If I were a 65-year-old man, I would probably be rushed to the hospital, thinking I was having a heart attack. I waited until the party was almost over and finally walked up to Kat, took her hand and led her to a quiet place. "Hey man, your palms are really sweaty," Kat said as we walked. "What did you need to tell me that you couldn't say in front of everyone?" You're beautiful, Kat," I stammered, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm not sure I've received such a strong blow in my entire life up to this point. She hit me square in the mouth, cutting my lower lip and knocking me to the ground. "You are a stupid idiot! Never talk to me again!" she hissed, leaving. I lay there on my back in the grass, wondering if she meant me. I don't know how long I lay there, but the next thing I knew, my mother was helping me sit up and pressing a napkin to my bloody lip. "Are you all right, Jewel?" she asked, calling me by a name that only my family had the courage to use. "What's happened? Who hit you?" "Kat." "Kat hit me because I said she was beautiful," I muttered through my napkin. "You told her she was beautiful and she hit you?" Mom asked, giggling. I nodded, upset that Mom seemed to be laughing at Kat for hitting me. "Oh, son, you made a big mistake by telling Catherine that," she said, helping me slowly to my feet. Tomorrow you'll probably need to apologize. Now let's go home." "But Mom, why should I apologize?" "She really is beautiful," I whined as we walked to our house next door. "Weren't you the one messing around with her on the floor yesterday, playing WWF Superstars or something? And today you tell her that she is beautiful." "Is Catherine like the girls you call beautiful?" she asked. This was the first of many times in my life when I did not understand fair sex. When I knocked on the door of the McVeigh's house the next day, I was greeted with a knowing smile by Kat's mother. "She's in the living room, Julian." "Why don't you go to the kitchen and I'll send her there so you can be alone," she said. Kat was grinning like a hyena as she walked into the kitchen. I knew that she was very proud of herself for the blow she had struck me with. My lip became swollen and purple in color. I mumbled, rather than spoke. "Sorry, Kat. I shouldn't have said what I said," I rasped. "Yes, I shouldn't have, but I probably shouldn't have hit you either," she answered. "My mother said that you were actually good." "When did you learn this?" I shrugged. "I guess my mother taught me that." Obviously, she was wrong. "Okay, I won't tell anyone that I broke your lip if you don't tell anyone that you called me beautiful," she said. "Agreed," I said enthusiastically, holding out my hand to shake. "But Kat, you really were beautiful." "Thank you, I think," she whispered. I never told Kat she was beautiful again, at least for the next few years. But I also never looked at her the same way again. She will never be just Kat to me again. One of the guys. It didn't help that Kat's breasts began to grow. Suddenly, I wasn't the only one looking at Kat that way. And I have to admit, I didn't like it one bit. I always seemed to consider Kat mine, and suddenly other boys seemed to appear out of nowhere to talk to her and flirt with her. To her credit, she didn't look like she was affected in any way, which at least gave me some small comfort. She was still my Kat, at least in my mind. Junior high school is a stronghold of teenage hormones, and our school was no different. I know my hormones were often on alert, but I knew I had to be careful. There was no way I wanted Kat to hit me again. There were a lot of other attractive girls at my high school, but I really only had eyes for Kat. The problem is that I seemed to be stuck being her friend because we had been close for so long. Other guys didn't have such problems and often approached her, and every time I felt a little frozen inside. Because I was watching Kat very closely, I noticed that she was not quite like all the other girls. That is, she is no longer such a tomboy as before, but she also doesn't look like the others. I can't say that I'm complaining. In high school, group dating was all the rage, although individual dating was starting to happen. Usually during group dates, Kat stayed with me and never agreed to individual ones, although I know that she was invited. As for me, there weren't any girls in Kat's attraction zone, so I didn't ask other girls out on dates. The main social event of the year at our school was the spring dance for 8th graders. Of course, I asked Kat to come with me, and then I tried to avoid it. But she did not shy away and agreed. Kat was wearing a very beautiful dress that I had never seen before, and I was wearing my Sunday suit. It seemed to me that we made a good couple. Both sets of parents made sure to take a lot of photos. Before my father drove us to school, her father stopped me on the side of the road and threatened to kill me if I dared touch his daughter the way my father wouldn't want my little sister touched. And this will be after she herself beats the living thing out of you. Got it, Julian? Of course, Mr. McVeigh, I croaked. We had a good time at the dance. We danced together several times and stayed close about most of the event. Several other guys asked her to dance, but she turned them all down. I felt like King Kong. At the end of the evening, Dad took us home. As I walked her to the door, my palms were sweaty, and my heart was pounding in my chest. This was the moment of truth. I planned to kiss her goodnight, assuming she would say yes to my request. In no case did I plan to attack Kat with kisses. While Dad drove the car to our house, leaving us alone on the porch, I croaked my request for a kiss, secretly watching her hands. She thought for a few seconds, and then nodded silently. In the movies, I had already seen how this was done, so I stepped towards her, grabbed her by the back, and kissed her, as it seemed to me, quite firmly. right on her warm, soft lips. She didn't move for the first few seconds, and then she returned the kiss, placing her hands on my shoulders. I was sure that my brain had short-circuited for a while. When I regained the ability to think a few seconds later, I was shaking from head to toe. "Did you feel it?" I asked in a whisper. She looked at me as if I had grown a second head before she finally crushed my soul. "No, I didn't feel anything," she replied. "Should I have?" No, no, no! This shouldn't have happened. James Bond never received such platitude when he kissed a woman. "Well, good night, Kat." "I had a good time," I muttered. "Yes, me too," she said before walking into her house. Although Kat and I didn't meet during our first year, we still talked often, as always. After all, she was still my best friend. However, now she spends more time than before with other girls. Frankly, I was somewhat perplexed because before she had never wanted to spend so much time with her peers. I guess I should have known that sooner or later she would turn into a grown girl. Being an idiot, I didn't even think to ask Kat to be my date to the prom dance. I just figured she knew we were going together. Apparently, she didn't know. Because about 3 weeks before the prom, I found out that she had agreed to go on a date with the handsome young Chris Tambran. I found out about this date when she casually told me about it. But I thought we were going to prom together," I whined. It was clear from my face that she surprised and offended me. "I'm sorry, Julian," she said softly. "You didn't tell me anything, and I decided I didn't think I should say anything. My fault." "You know what the word assume means," I said. "I hope you have a good time." The walk to school the next morning started very quietly as Robert, Jimmy, Kat, and I walked the half-mile distance to school. No one said anything until Robert asked if he and his date, Allie Forst, could go to prom with Kat and me. We looked at each other before Kat finally answered. We're not going to prom together? Chris Tambran asked me to go with him, and I agreed," Kat said. "Oh," Jimmy said, and let out a soft whistle. Robert patted me on the shoulder, and we continued on our way in silence. For the first time in my life, there was a rift in my relationship with Kat. We barely communicated for the next few weeks, as she began spending almost all her time with her girlfriends. 2 weeks before prom, my mom asked if I could have my suit dry cleaned. I understood why she was asking. I didn't tell her about Kat and Chris Tambran. When he told me, she stood there with her mouth open for several seconds. "Sorry, Jewel," she said quietly. "I take it you won't go with anyone?" "Yeah," I croaked in response. I tried to pretend I didn't care when I saw Chris pull up to Kat's house to pick her up for the dance night. But Mom and Dad weren't buying it. Chris is a handsome blonde man who was the starting guard on our basketball team. His height is 88 meters, weight 84, blue eyes. All the girls at school talked for 2 weeks about how lucky Kat was. Jimmy and I spent the whole night dancing at the bowling alley. We spent a fortune for 2 children, playing 10 games each and eating 1 pizza in the hall for 2. I was so out of my depth that Jimmy beat me overall for the first time in my life. At least one of us had a good time. Kat and I spent the better part of 2 weeks avoiding each other. I don't know about her, but I was unhappy. I didn't know how to get out of this impasse, although I wasn't sure I should care. 2 days later, I was sitting in my room looking at the ceiling when Mom brought Kat in. "Someone needs to talk to you, Jewel, and you need to listen," Mom said. I guess Mom and Kat talked first. Mom had a benevolent smile on her face, and Kat looked like she was ready to cry. "Forgive me, Julian. I probably shouldn't have met him without consulting you. I knew you expected us to go to prom together," she said. "Well, yes, something like that," I answered. I had to offer. My mother scolded me greatly for this. I am stupid. She still had tears in her eyes. It finally dawned on me that this was about something more than just a date. "Julian, can we have a serious conversation? Well, that is, for real? Like, about life and death, maybe? I really need to talk to someone, and I think that person should be you." Can you just listen to me without judging or getting angry? I really, really need you right now, Julian. Okay, Kat. I've always been yours, I replied. You speak, I listen. Whatever it is, we can solve it together. She hugged me tightly and cried. I gave her a few minutes to cry, and then I pulled her away from me and looked into her eyes. Come on, I whispered. Remember when we kissed and you asked me if I felt it and I said no? She began. Well, I had questions, and I was wondering, is it about you or about me? So I decided to try dating another guy and see if I feel it with him or not. You kissed Chris, I interrupted, but quickly fell silent when she pointed at me and made a crazy grimace. Again, I didn't feel anything, but he did when he grabbed me by the chest a few minutes later. I hit him hard in the crotch, and he vomited. He kept his distance from me for about an hour until we left early, she explained. I started to speak again, but she stopped me with an icy look. Okay, now is the hard part, she continued. I've been worried actually, about some of the feelings I've had for a few girls over the past year or so. I thought I might be a lesbian. When I didn't feel anything when I kissed you or Chris, the picture became clearer. And when she kissed Kendra Rizzi in the library 2 days ago, everything fell into place. Tears flowed from her eyes, and I sat on the bed, speechless. Say something, idiot, she shouted at me. I was waiting for you to let me talk, I snapped. She looked at me again and then shrugged. I decided it was now my turn to speak. Did you kiss Kendra Rizzi? Wow. I'd like to do it myself, I said. And that's all you have to say? Is it true? She commented. Wait, I thought you liked me? I like you, and you know it. So, is this kiss with Kendra just a kiss? Or is there something going on between you two? I asked. She looked guilty and embarrassed. I really don't know. But that's only half the story, Julian. Do you know what I mean? Yes, I understand, I said. It looks like you have a lot of thinking to do. But whatever you decide, I'm here for you. I will always be there for you, Kat. Always. She sat down on the bed next to where I was sitting and tried to break my ribs by hugging me. So you won't hate me? She sobbed into my shoulder. I can't even if I try. If only you can bear that I will love you from a distance for the rest of our days. I said. She hugged me again. I hugged her back. I was sure that I was the first person she told about her decision, although I had a feeling that in time she would tell others about it. We never discussed it when others were around. I know that she dated several other girls later in her school years, but for the most part, I was a cover for her. Whenever there was any important event or party, I was her date. I was safe, and we still had a great friendship, so everything was fine. It probably didn't hurt that I was a good kisser, she once confessed to me. In exchange for my covering for her, she was my companion when I needed it, like when my Aunt Trudy remarried. Most of my family had seen her with me so often over the years that they automatically assumed she and I were a couple. Then the day came when she turned my world upside down. In July, on a Friday evening, the whole group of us went to celebrate Kat's 18th birthday. We visited 2 dance clubs and had a great time. Kat and I behaved like good friends, if not exactly dating partners. I occasionally put my arm around her waist, touched her lightly, kissed her a couple of times in a friendly manner on the lips. Our group consisted of 10 people, including 2 real couples, and over the course of the evening they began to increase their degree of sexuality. Surprisingly, Kat seemed to be getting more and more excited. It was probably after midnight that she changed my life. Take me somewhere and make love to me, Julian, she whispered in my ear. We were on the dance floor, slow dancing, when she said her line. I froze. That is, I stopped dancing and stopped breathing, standing like a statue. Are you sure, Kat? I asked, almost in a whisper. Well, that is, I don't want you to feel obligated. She led me by the hand from the dance floor. As we passed our table, she told Becky Hansen that some of those sitting there would have to find their own way home. Indeed? She asked. Kat nodded silently. Both girls exchanged grins, then Kat led me to the car. "I'm confused, Kat," I said, getting behind the wheel. "I really want this, but only if you want it as much as I do." "What's going on, baby?" "We can't talk about this now, Julian. I have something going on right now, and I don't want to lose this feeling. Do you trust me?" she asked. "Always." "Of course," I replied. I didn't know where we could go, but I knew of one area located in a cul-de-sac on the north side of town. We were there in 20 minutes. "Get into the back seat, quickly." That's all she said. We got into the back seat, and she immediately pressed her face to me, kissing me furiously. The kissing continued for at least 20 minutes. "Take off my clothes. Strip me naked, Julian. Have sex with me. Do it. But start easy." "I'm still a virgin," she said. "Me too," I said quietly. It was probably too dark for her to see me blush, but I saw her eyes glaze over with lust before a look of surprise appeared on her face. "Indeed? I would have thought that such a handsome guy like you—" "I was waiting for the right girl," I interrupted. "And it's me, despite what you know?" she asked. "Well, you're here," I said, smiling radiantly, my heart pounding in my chest. "Yes. Now kiss me and don't rush," she said. Neither of us thought about foreplay. I slowly and very carefully turned the girl into a woman. "Kiss me again and go slow," she whispered. I pressed my lips to her soft lips. We continued to kiss and make love on the most beautiful night of my life. She moaned several times, and then we both came to the finish line. I'm sure the low roar was mine and the high scream was hers. I don't know how long we made love and how long our ascent to the heights of voluptuousness lasted. All I know is that I came to my senses a few minutes later, when we were both lying on the seat, my body half lying on hers, and we were both breathing heavily. Several minutes passed before either of us spoke. Wow, I muttered. "Yes, exactly," she replied. "What was it?" I asked. Silence reigned for several long minutes, interrupted only by the sounds of our kisses. "What if I'm wrong, Julian? What if I'm not a lesbian? How can I find out about this unless I try to take the road less traveled?" she said. "Anyway, I wanted you to be first." "You are my best friend. You have always been my best friend. I can't imagine a time when you will no longer be my best friend." "Thank you," she added, not paying attention to me. I grinned back. We went to college in the same state, about an hour apart, and out of the public eye, Kat finally felt free and, she says, openly dated other women. She showed me photographs of several of her partners, and I had to admit that she had excellent taste in women. I joked that I should ask her to find me a woman who wasn't a lesbian since she had such good taste. "Don't be a jerk. Look for your own beauties, Romeo," she said. We talked at least a couple of times a week. Usually these were just friendly conversations, but sometimes we moved on to topics of a more personal nature. Both could ask each other questions about sex that they couldn't ask anyone else. It was something of an opportunity to get insider information. Besides, we could be honest with each other. Even though I understood that college was the first time Kat could truly embrace gay life, I didn't want her to derail her life and get into trouble. I didn't want her to become a slut, even if she played for another team. She was too dear to me for this to happen. "Be careful, Kat. Keep your eyes open. I understand that I'm starting to sound like your parents, but only because I don't give a damn, baby," I once said, turning to her. "It makes no difference who you date, men or women. A slut is still a slut." "I obey, Mom," she answered me boldly. Kat's parents were stunned when she finally opened up to them over Christmas break of her freshman year. She told me that she was going to tell them about it the first night after she returned. The next day, her mom called me and asked if I could come over to talk to her and her husband. I've known them forever. They were practically second parents to me. How could I refuse them? "Why didn't you tell us, Julian?" was the first question I was asked when I met with them. "You're practically a member of the family." "How could you not tell us?" asked Mrs. McVeigh. "It's not for me to tell you about this, and I love Kat too much to go behind her back," I replied. "She herself should have finally told you. My job is to support her and cover her back." I always thought that someday you would be together. I always thought you had something," her mother said. "We were always best friends, but in high school she told me that she considered herself a lesbian. At first I was crushed, but then I realized that she could be the way she is. I will always love her and she knows it. I guess it hurt when she said we'd never be together that way, but at the same time it didn't hurt as much as if there was another guy," I said. "So this date was really just a pretense?" asked the father. "You both